Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the weekly MMA Cycles Market Update. Today is the 27th of March, 2024, and I'm joined by the one and only Ray Merriman this week. Ray, how's it going?
Just fine. Thank you, Johnny. Good to be on the program again.
Well, it's great to have you back. We have no shortage of geocosmic signatures to discuss. Markets are making really important moves, I think, and we also have a couple of really exciting announcements at the end of this video that we're going to share. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. We can start off by looking at the Dow Jones as we normally do. Everyone in the astrological community is talking about a few upcoming geocosmic signatures. Obviously, you have the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, but also these eclipses coming up. And, markets are doing pretty good right now. But, in terms of short-term geocosmics, it's been kind of quiet this week, but that's going to change next week when Mercury goes retrograde on Monday. And then you have Venus forming a conjunction in Neptune, changing signs, ingressing into Aries. So are we going to start seeing a shift here in some markets that could make a meaningful impact on people's portfolios? What's your take, Ray?
Well, that's an excellent question. And it's the thing that most people who study astrology as a market timing tool are focused on right now. My view is that the Jupiter-Uranus, which is a 14-year cycle, and is the strongest planetary cycle in effect this year, and has a pretty good history of coinciding with breakouts in financial markets, that it's a magnet. It's been pulling prices up all year, just as we indicate in our forecast book and our webinars. I think it continues to pull prices up. But you're already in the time band. I mean, it's usually within 6 weeks, and if you want to be more specific, it's oftentimes within 2 weeks that you actually get that momentum peaking. So I think we still got a couple weeks to go, but we have some difficult, challenging cosmic conditions arising, as you mentioned, with Mercury retrograde, which is, you don't know if that's going to be a breakout or if it's going to be just swinging back and forth. Well, it tends to do either or. It's a lot like Uranus, and we have the Jupiter-Uranus, of course, conjunction April 20th, 21st. And then we got that eclipse, conjunct Chiron, which has long-term implications for recessions within a year. So I'm worried about that later on this year. And then you got Mars conjunct Saturn right after the eclipse, and that's on April 10th. So that combination, the eclipse conjunct Chiron in Aries, the Mars, which rules Aries, conjunct Saturn, these are war rhetoric, war threats, and those kinds of events or those kinds of threats, if they get greater headlines, it can cause reversal in financial markets, as you know, that they're either beginning a new primary cycle here with the stock market or the end of an old primary cycle. It's kind of hard to tell because it's a ragged looking chart that's been up for a long, long time. Yeah. So I would stay with the long side and see you start taking out that low of last week. That'd be my advice. And then as you get into the end of April, possibly even into early June, that's kind of where I would be looking for a top if we make a new all-time high and don't take out that low last week.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Underneath the surface of the market, we're still seeing technology do pretty well overall. And, that's such an important sector for the
Yeah.
market. Everyone's asking about the Federal Reserve, are they going to cut rates? We've been talking about them likely easing this year. Right now, the market is expecting them to have their first cut just after the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, but just before the Jupiter-Saturn square. And
Yeah.
I think they're walking a fine line when it comes to the inflation, data. And you have another data point coming out for inflation this week. But, I wouldn't be surprised to see them flip-flop. But in the near term, I'm actually going to pull up a chart of the TLT, the long-term treasury ETF. You are seeing a strong bid come in on long-term bonds. In other words, interest rates are coming down. So I think this supports the idea that, one, the Fed is going to cut at some point this year, but two, as you just mentioned, with respect to Chiron and the eclipse, the potential for a recession, because you wouldn't see bonds rallying like they are now if
Yeah.
there wasn't the risk of an economic slowdown. And so this is where, there is some confusion. taking place right now. You do have still quite a few planets in the sign of Pisces, so that can be confusing between Venus and Mars and whatnot. But that's kind of what's on my radar now. So do you have any take on? I know you've been
I do.
bullish on bonds, thinking that rates are going to go lower, especially when it comes to real estate. But any update on that?
Yeah. As you know, I like to look at transits to the Fed Reserve Board chart. And when there's a Saturn transit, there is concern of tightening or the end of easing. We're under a Saturn aspect now. Saturn's in 13 degrees of Pisces last week, this week, especially this week and next week. And so there has been concern in the last couple, few days that the Fed is going to take their time lowering their interest rates. But I think that's a function of Saturn. There is a fear they're not going to go as fast as people thought. But that leaves next week. And in its place, as we go toward the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, that is going to be trining the Fed Reserve Board Jupiter, and Jupiter is easing. And that's happening right around the time and shortly after. In fact, it even goes into the end of May, that I think the Fed will be more aggressive, more forthright in their talk, in their commentary about lowering rates. So I think we are going to see lower rates. And I think that the narrative of that had been in effect. It stalled under Saturn. It's going to come back in effect after next week. And I think it's just going to grow right until the time they actually make the announcement, which I think could be early. I think it could be in May. I know most people are thinking June, but it's either coming up in May or there's just an overwhelming belief that they're going to lower rates in May, and the market responds to that and goes up in the T-notes.
Very interesting. Now, the good news on that front, I know a lot of our viewers love the precious metal market. I do think that rates coming down will be bullish for gold, and you're seeing gold act very well here again. We had some, I think we had Venus sextile Jupiter this week, so a couple of Jupiter signatures, and the fact that gold has continued to rally through those aspects is a really good sign. Gold doesn't usually like Jupiter, but this is looking good. So how high do you think gold can go? And what do you think about this sector right now?
Well, I like the gold sector. I think it could go to 2290, 2390. That's my target in this primary cycle, which we're only in the 6th week, 7th week.
Yeah, so early.
Yeah, I think we're in the 6th week, maybe.
Yeah.
So this is a time band for major cycle bomb. That may have been in a week or so ago, but it's a strange looking chart there. You had a high, then a low, then a higher high. You started coming down, you're starting to go up again, but it's still in the congestion zone of that 2-day move we had a week or so ago.
Yep.
So it makes me think that maybe we're going to get a half primary bottom too. I don't know we're going to run up into the Jupiter conjunct Uranus. It's really hard to tell. If we start making new highs, yeah, then it's a given it's going to go. But until we take out that high of last week, which was in the low 2200s, until we take that out, I think we might, be headed back toward that low again we had a week or so ago. What was that 20, like what price is that? I can't quite see.
I have GLD up. Let me pull up spot gold.
Oh, okay.
That low was that we just rolled contracts to June, so this would have been in the April contract. It was at 21.49.
Okay, I would like to see it go back there.
Yeah,
I would like to see it do that in the next 3 to 4 weeks. Well, 1 to 3 weeks, because that'd be a half primary bottom, would fit really well. It's still bullish, and then I think we take off. However, if the June contract starts making new highs, which is a few dollars still away, if it starts making new all-time highs, then we're not going to get a half primary bottom. We're just going to shoot up, I think, to the 2290 and maybe above 2300 by the time we get to Jupiter, Uranus, in that period.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. I think gold looks pretty good, but what I think looks even better, maybe not necessarily over the next couple of weeks, is Bitcoin. So with Bitcoin, we've been talking about the timing for an intermediate term cycle low, 15, 16-month cycle, where we're in that time band now. I mean, I would love to see it hit 50, 52,000. I don't even know if we'll get that. All I know is that if we take out this low from the 20th of March, even as early as the first week of April, because, we wanted to see a 1-month decline at least into that bottom.
Yeah.
So we're due for a primary cycle low. How high do you think crypto can go, Ray, especially Bitcoin? I mean, to me, it looks pretty bullish still.
It was bullish to me too. I don't have an exact price target. It's just over 80,000, but that's not anything. I mean, over 100,000 seems very probable to me.
Yeah.
Once we get that 15, 16 month cycle low in,
Yeah.
which is due now. I mean, it was due March or April. Those are the idea. Well, actually February to April. We're in the April now. So this is the ideal time for it to happen.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see it come down there and actually break a trend line between the January low and the March low. If you could break that trend line and get down to your target, you're looking at 52,000. I'd be looking if it does that down to 47 to 53,000. So that's in the same time, in the same price zone. So my advice to listeners is if it drops into that zone that you just highlighted, that's a buy. That's a buy period there. And in the meantime, if you start making new highs and closing above that 70, let's say 74, 75,000 area, then I'd have to think that was a double bottom that we had January to March. It wasn't much of a decline. You saw the decline that we wanted to see, which was 20 to 50%. You saw 21% in January. But if you look at Ethereum, you'll see that it fell 25%. So
Yeah.
Ethereum seems to be fitting this 15, 16 month cycle low price-wise a little bit better than Bitcoin does. And yes, in this chart, you see the divergence. Bitcoin didn't make a new low a couple weeks ago, and Ethereum did. And in fact, it dropped to 25%, which is in the price zone you like to see for a long-term cycle low. So there are arguments either way for the bullish or bearish case, and I would say that if it starts taking out 74, 75,000, you have to just keep buying any dips. And if it doesn't take it out, then there's a good chance we could see 47,000 or 53,000, and that's where I'd recommend starting your buying program or adding on to your long positions.
Yeah. I agree, Ray. Let's jump over to the energy market. We're going to look at USO here. You know, it's been rising pretty well since that low in December, but the primary cycle is maturing. It is getting late. And, you know, now we're talking about a potential rally in bonds accelerating. That would fit well with a pullback into a primary cycle low for energy. So do you think we've completed the primary cycle high and that we're about to complete a corrective decline? Or do you think the upside momentum is going to continue here?
The truth is, I really don't know because it is late in the cycle. It could have a strong 2 to 5 week decline starting now, and you don't want to see it take out a channel in the crude oil index, which is somewhere around what, $75 a barrel.
Yeah, I got it right here. Yeah.
As long as you respect the channel, I think the trend is still up. But even if you drop to 75, 76, that'd be a primary bottom. It's a good drop from here. I think it's what, $81 a barrel now, something like that.
Yeah.
So if it dropped back to 75, 76, that's a pretty good decline. That would fit a primary bottom. And then it too could go up. I like it from an astrological, geocosmic point of view because it's Jupiter. Jupiter co-rules energy, and it's conjunct Uranus. You can see the trend from the beginning of the year has been up. So there is still the possibility it could explode and go parabolic on us yet until, well, you got Jupiter aspects not only to Uranus in April, but then you got it sextile Neptune, which is real strong in late May, and trine Pluto in early June. So there's still the geocosmic indication that crude oil could get explosive here before we get to the middle of June.
Fantastic. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I do think the primary cycle high is complete here. And I think, you know, from an intermarket standpoint, it fits well that you could see bonds rally, crude oil come down.
Well, I wouldn't mind seeing it hit the lower end of that channel. Like I said, that's $75, $76 a barrel. That would be a good corrective decline of 2 to 5 weeks and set the stage for the explosion I'm still seeing as a possibility.
Yeah. Very good. Well, Ray, those are all the markets that I wanted to cover with you today. We do have a couple of really important announcements. The first one being that on the 18th of May, we're going to have our MMA webinar, our update for financial markets. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that? That's going to be that's a Saturday, I believe.
Yeah, it's going to be on a Saturday this year.
Yeah.
This is something we do every year. It's our mid-year annual market update, and it features our MMA analysts that you read every week, every month in our reports. We'll have Matt Kaiser talking about copper. We'll have Puyan talking about silver and crude oil. Wyatt will give his outlook on soybeans. You're going to cover many of the financials. Always going to cover some currencies. I'm going to cover gold and Bitcoin. And we're going to be giving our intermediate term outlook, which is basically what we think in the next 3 to 6 months in these markets. It's a very popular webinar we do every year. We usually get around 500 people signing up for it. So we're looking forward to that. It's an exciting time for us. And usually May is a good month. May and June are usually very, very important months in financial matter. For that matter, so is August and September and October. So the next 6 months is going to be very important historically speaking, and I think this year as well.
I know I always enjoy participating in those webinars, so I'm looking forward to it as well. Now for the second announcement, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. This is something that I know you and I are both very excited to share with our viewers. Our MMA Investment Retreat later this year in September, that's going to be held in Slovenia. So Ray, why don't you share a little bit about this very special event with our viewers, and hopefully some of them will join us, right?
I'm very excited about this. This is our annual investment retreat, and for the first time in 9 years, we're going back to Europe. In 2015, we were in Florence, Italy. This time, we're going to go into another beautiful area for our investment retreat, and this will be Lake Bled, Slovenia, in the Julian Alps, a stunning location where we're conducting the conference. It's going to take place September 19th to 22nd. Again, it's going to feature all of the MMA analysts that I just mentioned. Plus, it's going to have some of our graduates give special presentations, like Irma Skolt from Netherlands and Rita Perea from Iowa. And yeah, go back to that page before. We have special guests, Claude Weiss and Alexander Imsirgic. These are probably two of the most renowned mundane astrologers in the world today. And they're going to share their outlooks of the world economic and political situation from their perspective over the next 5 to 8 years, 2024 to 2032. I'm really excited to hear their insights because they tend to see things that, you know, even cycles analysts and market commentators and political commentators don't see. These are really good analysts when it comes to anticipating and visualizing and outlining what the future really might look like in these areas economically and financially. So it's a 3-day retreat. If you've never been to one of our retreats, it's something that's always memorable. It's very meaningful in your life. People change their whole direction of their investment portfolio because as analysts, each of us will be giving our outlooks too for the next 3 to 5 years. When we expect a major move down in many of these financial markets, and we're going to share with you at what price level and what time bands we think it's important to start scaling in for these long-term cycle bottoms in these various markets that we're going to cover. So I hope some of you can join us. If you are interested, I would sign up soon because there's only 30 rooms that we reserved at the hotel and 19 of them are already taken. But it's going to be an incredible experience and one not to miss if you can make it.
I'm very excited myself, and just I want to again emphasize the quality of the analysts that are going to be here. You know, from all over the world, Asia, Europe, North America, all very accomplished individuals in their own right, exceptional analysts and good mundane astrologers as well. So it's going to be an action-packed weekend for sure. It's going to be at the Reekley Balance Hotel in Lake Bled, like Ray said, and the details can be found at www.mmacycles.com. So we do have an early registration rate for those that wish to attend. You can sign up for $3,000 to participate before August 2nd. After that, the cost is increased to $3,500 USD. So I wouldn't hesitate because, like Ray said, the rooms are filling up quickly, and we know there is a lot of pent-up demand for an MMA conference, especially in Europe. having passed 9 years since we last participated in that. So again, details can be found at www.mmacycles.com, and you can also send us an email at customerservice@mmacycles.com if you have any other questions. So Ray, any final words before we wrap up this video here today?
Yes, if you can't make it in person, it will be offered online too via Zoom. So you have two options to take here. Either sign up live, which I think is the greatest opportunity for anybody who can make it. But if that's not possible, it'll be offered online, and everybody who attends will be getting the copy of the slideshows and the recordings. So you won't miss it if you can't be there physically. It's a much more enriching and wonderful experience to be there with people of like mind. So I hope you can make it.
Okay, and that's all for now, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on the weekly MMA update. Please subscribe to our channel if you have not done so already. We do have weekly market updates and host periodic guests. So check us out, www.mmacycles.com. We will see you same time, same place next week.